European and so-called moderate Arab leaders gather in a parade of support for President Mubarak in Sharm el-Sheikh. Is it an Egyptian attempt to save face after the US-Israeli agreement to secure Egypt's border with Gaza? And what is the likely future of the Strip under the fragile unilateral ceasefire from Israel? Can it hold? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Imran Garda. After more than 3 weeks of fighting and over 1,200 people dead, a hope for peace when Israel declared a unilateral ceasefire on Sunday. Israel said its troops will remain in Gaza for the time being and respond with force if fired upon. On the other hand, Hamas and other Palestinian factions announced a one-week unilateral ceasefire, demanding withdrawal of Israeli troops and opening of all Gaza crossings for the entry of humanitarian aid. The unilateral ceasefires are a blow to the Egyptian initiative. On Saturday, Egyptian President Mubarak's strong speech urged Israeli withdrawal and announced an international summit on the crisis in Sharm el-Sheikh on Sunday. Well, joining us now are our guests in Jerusalem, Mahdi Abdelhadi. He's the head and founder of the Palestinian Academic Society for the Study of International Affairs in Jerusalem. In Beirut, Robert Fisk, a distinguished author and the Middle East correspondent for the British newspaper The Independent. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Robert Fisk, if I could start off with you, why the decision from Israel to declare a unilateral ceasefire right now?
Well, I think that even the Israelis who dominate American policy on the Middle East realize that Mr. Barack Obama has got to have a smile on his face on Tuesday when he's inaugurated as President of the United States. And I think that time ran out on the Israelis. Clearly, they didn't finish their operations. Rockets still flew today from Hamas. Clearly, they hadn't got to the end of it, but they ran out of time after killing an awful lot of people. And I think this is simply because they don't want a massive battle going on in Gaza, and America would not tolerate a massive battle going on in Gaza while the new president is being inaugurated. I think that is the only time frame that anyone is interested in concentrating on. I don't think this is because the Israeli military has miraculously achieved its aims, which it never manages to do in any war anyway.
It's interesting that you say that, because it cooks up some fascinating questions as to the motives for the war, the planning of the war beforehand. It makes me think that Israel planned this for a long, long time, and they saw this window of opportunity in that interregnum period with Bush going out and Obama coming in. Is that the way you see it?
I don't think so. I think you see that Israel, rather like the Palestinians, always embark on military enterprises under the self-delusion that they can actually accomplish what they're setting out to do. Remember, Ehud Olmert did exactly the same in 2006 when he was going to destroy the Hezbollah, and in the end, well, I don't know if Hezbollah won the war, but Israel certainly lost it. And this time we were told all these different ambitions. They were going to destroy Hamas, take away their war-fighting capability, end the rockets being launched. They were going to teach the Palestinians a lesson. Well, a bloody lesson it was. But they have not, once again, they've overjudged their own ambitions and their own abilities.
Dr. Mahdi Abdelhadi, is Sharm el-Sheikh a serious summit? The summit that's going on, being discussed on Sunday, or is it just face-saving for Egypt?
Well, it's more than safe-facing for Egypt. It covers definitely Europe and the Palestinian Authority as well as the Israelis. We witnessed exactly why the Israelis want unilaterally to call for ceasefire. And this morning, again, Hamas came with the ceasefire for 1 week in order to see what lies ahead. Sharm el-Sheikh summit covers 3 aspects. Number 1, that Egypt is claiming again its role as a leader in the region and have a say. 2, to bring those who have been very clearly politically hypocrites looking for Israeli security and safety and did nothing, absolutely nothing, for the last 22 days of the massacre of the Palestinians in Gaza. And now they are meeting people halfway for their own society. People are demonstrating in every capital in Europe, as well as looking for humanitarian aid to transfer the Palestine question to humanitarian aid, as well as the United Nations, who accepted to be in one seat in the quartet doing absolutely nothing and run behind Condoleezza Rice decisions. Egyptians are trying to balance between Doha conference and the coming Kuwait conference to tell the Arab region, I am here and I have a say. Number one, I tried to convince the Israelis to halt the ceasefire, and they are meeting halfway. While the Israelis took the decision a long time ago, exactly as Mr. Robert Fisk was saying, in terms for Obama administration, and two, to save face for the Israeli public opinion, and three, and not to sign a deal with Hamas. And they went unilaterally in order not to recognize Hamas, as they did it exactly with Hezbollah in 2006. Sharm el-Sheikh conference today is Egypt is saying, I'm here, I have a say. Two, Europeans are saying, we missed it for 22 days, but we can compensate in humanitarian aid. Three, United Nations saying we can be the umbrella and assist and facilitate. Four, the Israelis are going to open the door for all those hypocrites to say we can do something for this miserable, defeated, beaten, humiliated, destroyed Palestinians in Gaza.
Robert Fisk, Egypt must have fumed when it saw the scenes coming out of the Doha summit. Here you had Hamas on a pedestal. You had Khalid Mashal speaking first alongside all these heads of state, given the legitimacy it so craves and it hasn't gotten from the Israelis and others. Egypt must have been going ballistic over that.
Well, Dr. Abdul Hadi doesn't mince his words, but I think he's got it pretty well right. I mean, you've got to realize it's the fate of autocrats who take money and military assistance from the West, as most of the Arab potentates, kings, princes and presidents do, to have to come to heel and find they're playing second fiddle from time to time. I agree with you on the worthlessness of Sharm el-Sheikh. No one is talking about opening all the borders of Gaza to food and fuel, which is what the Palestinians want. I think it's very interesting, and I wonder if Dr. Abdul Hadi knows the date today, because it is exactly, to this day, the 90th anniversary of the opening of the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, which created the modern Middle East through the Versailles Treaty and created the whole mess that we're in now. In fact, on 18th of January 1919, one of the first items on the agenda of the French and the British and the Germans and the Czechs and the Turks, all of whom are at Sharm el-Sheikh today, was the borders of Palestine. Well, welcome to the ghosts of the past. I bet they'll be in Sharm el-Sheikh listening.
You definitely know your history, Mr. Fisk. Mahdi Abdul Hadi, Bashar al-Assad said at Doha, he said that the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002 is dead now. That was his strong declaration. How significant do you think is that statement from the Syrian president?
Just allow me just one footnote very quickly to Mr. Robert Fisk.
Go ahead.
Totally agree with you as a student of history. 1919 definitely imposed a mandate on the whole Arab world and the whole region, and Palestinians were demanding self-determination, and Palestinians were demanding to be part of Arab United Countries. Today we don't have Paris Peace Conference of 1919. Today we don't have Madrid Conference. We don't have any of these above conferences. People are waiting to see this young man Obama, and I hope they will not be very much disappointed with his agenda vis-a-vis the Middle East. Israelis jump before anybody else to impose the agenda, security for Israel, and involving NATO, including all these European heads of state meeting today in Sharm el-Sheikh to maintain law and order or security for Israel first, and then look for the Palestinians today as a humanitarian aid, and maybe using their assets in order to have a say in daily affairs of Palestinian society and try to save Mahmoud Abbas from sinking in what is really happening for the last 22 days, to give him sort of legitimacy and recognition after he lost it already among his people. Now, coming back to Bashar al-Assad's statement, yes, definitely, Doha summit was very clear in preparing the agenda for Kuwait summit. And that's why the Egyptians today are hosting the Sharm el-Sheikh conference to tell everybody we are concerned about not only economy but the Palestinian issue, and we can have a say in shaping the future of Palestine with Mahmoud Abbas and not with somebody else. Doha conference or Doha summit put on the agenda that people are meeting today, whomever they are, wherever they are, under any circumstances, cannot talk anymore about the Arab Initiative of 2002. No, the question of normalization with Israel while Palestinians are bleeding. This is basically one. Number two, to introduce and recognize Hamas as sharing the saying of the Palestinian future, legitimate, elected, responsible, and resistance, and having now a say, not only by a statement of Mishal in Doha, but telling the Arab summit tomorrow in Kuwait. You cannot deal alone with defeated, divided, weak, no vision, no leadership of Fatah and divided society. These people are the resistance, and these people are paying the price, and they should be recognized. And the third level, definitely for Europeans who are meeting today in Sharm el-Sheikh, if you want to talk about economy and development, we have to talk from regional perspective and not limiting it only to Gaza. And this is exactly what Doha did. Prepare a homework, prepare a draft resolution for Kuwaiti summit in order to challenge those who are still wishing to work on the peace process, as the old say. Today we are entering a new chapter in Palestine, in the region. The man in the street will not accept the status quo as before, and the Israelis are very much exposed as liars, as cheaters, as killers and occupiers, and playing the game of maintaining the status quo and taking the land and transferring the Palestine question in terms of people to the Arab house, Egypt and Jordan.
Robert Fisk, interesting that you earlier mentioned the 90th anniversary of the Paris Peace Summit. I wonder, in years to come, 90 years from now, when people look into the history books and they see not only rival factions, but they see rival summits, it will look ridiculous, won't it?
Well, we know the man who was at the Paris Peace Conference trying to bring peace through the world, and that was President Wilson of the United States, with Clemenceau, of course, of France there as well, and Lloyd George for London. Whether we all know who Nicolas Sarkozy is, or Gordon Brown in 90 years' time, Gordon who, Nicholas who? Look, I think you've got to see, I think this summit is intended to enhance Mahmoud Abbas, who cannot, frankly, be enhanced. But I think there's an issue which we're not really dealing with here, and that is that I don't think Hamas won this war. One of the things that struck me in particular is that Hamas seemed to think in its rhetoric that it was the same as Hezbollah. And it's not. That's a serious error. They do not have the same ability to fight the Israeli army as Hezbollah had. And what is particularly interesting is their total lack of security. There remains inside Gaza, clearly, a forest of collaborators, informers and spies, either working for Fatah or working directly for the Israelis, who were able to give away the addresses of every home and hideout of Hamas members, and that's why senior members were killed by the Israelis. So what we need to look at is not just Hamas as a political organization, but how it didn't really do very well against the Israelis militarily. And I think that it's important to remember these things, because Hezbollah has a place in the politics of Lebanon, because militarily it's worth something, whatever you think of it yourself. Whereas Hamas, I'm not so sure. We're able to talk about the election, of which those pesky Palestinians voted for the wrong people. They voted for Hamas, but we must also remember the coup in Gaza, which killed 151 Palestinians. I'm not sure that Hamas is going to come out of this with its shield shining bright in the sunshine.
All right, gentlemen, it's time for a short break. When we come back, more on those rival summits and possible solutions for Gaza. Do stay with us.